Let's talk about narcissism and the need to control food. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I have been counseling women and men who have experienced abuse as well as those who have been perpetrators of abuse and other violent crimes. I have a listener that wrote in or commenter. She says, "Hi, I love your work. Can you explain a video explaining the link between narcissism and the need to control food? I thought it was just my dad until I learned recently it's normal, quote unquote, for narcissistic people to do that." So I won't categorize a whole group of people, but what I will say, and I'm not sure whose need to control food we're referring to, but I'm assuming that I don't know if you mean he's controlling his food versus controlling your food. So I'm gonna address both. So there are parents out there who are incredibly narcissistic, but who also have um, dual diagnosis or multiple diagnosis. It is possible to have a diagnosis of body dysmorphia, which is where you don't have a realistic view or expectation of how your body looks. There's always something wrong with it. There's like this sort of fixation on feeling the need to change it, control it, modify it somehow. And your how you see yourself isn't an accurate representation, usually with people who have that, versus eating disorders, and things like that. So a lot of us are, a lot of people are into the dating world now, and they're on dating apps and things like that. And what you will notice is that people who are particularly into themselves are in the gym. They're usually setting up their bio by all these photos of themselves in the gym, or with their clothes off, sort of displaying themselves because they want to advertise their body. And that could indicate a couple of different things. One, they're looking for sex, right? They like for people to be drawn to them physically, and they just want to hook up with as many people as they can, not necessarily having a relationship. But it could also mean that, and in most cases, this is what it is. They are chasing external validation. So they want people to go, oh my God, look at you. You're such a god. You're such a goddess. And just sort of fawn all over them and have this admiration and adoration of them. And, all because of like how aesthetically pleasing they look to the eye, right? And so they love that. It's not uncommon for people to want validation for that. And they get that by, having their body on display and fitting the prototype of what is considered to be attractive. And I'm going to speak about US standards because that's the one I'm familiar with, which is, thinness and things like that. And so there could be this sort of obsessiveness over food. It's like, there's like this push-pull relationship with it. I want this body. I desire this body. I crave this body, and I crave what it can bring me in terms of, lust, in terms of attention and all of these sorts of things. But at the same time, I can't eat. And when I can't eat, I turn into an absolute bear. And when I turn into a bear, and this is something that's commonly happens with parents when they have their own issues with food or with their own body, they often project that onto their children by calling their children fat, or telling them, hey, don't you need to watch what you eat? So they can become hypercritical of their children, of their body image. They can become super controlling of what their children consume, right? Because it's like, oh, I don't think you need to eat that, or don't you think you put on a few pounds? I don't think you need to put that back, And so there could be just sort of this thing where it's like, I have to I have to project my own issues off onto someone else. I have to make them feel bad in order to feel better about myself. I have to control someone else's actions in order to feel like I am in control of my own actions, right? And so there is the sort of this projection. There can be an ego boost by putting someone down or depriving your children food, or just just being able to deprive them. It can also feel like that is in their mind, it could feel like that is the way that they connect with their children, over like food restriction, over like appearances and things like that. So they can feel like, oh, okay, well, my child gets it, and that's what we can do. But I think there can also be misogyny roped into this, as well as misogynoir roped into this, where it's like, well, a man, your father, feels like women should look this way. And because they're used to women, and unfortunately, this could be something that's roped back into sex as well. So the women that they desire, or the women that they feel like they should be seen with, because they could actually desire all types of women, but the women that they feel like they should be seen with in order to get an ego boost should maybe be thin, or shouldn't eat as much, and should be super ladylike and be super light and dainty and like a feather, and just be so feminine. And that feminineness can be roped into being super skinny, and that she should have control and deprive herself of that. And that deprivation is, again, a projection, because they want to deprive and control. And so they like it when other people around them deprive, have this self-control and deprive them of that as well. But I think, again, body image, sexuality, control dynamics play such a huge, huge role into this. And it's, uh, this person, your dad, your parent, there's a lot of parents that believe that they should have control over their child's bodies, including their adult child's bodies. And, to me, whenever you have a man that's sort of commenting on a woman's body, in my experience, you almost always have a level of sexual deviancy that goes along with that. So when he's trying to control a woman's body, when he's trying to, tell her what she should and shouldn't eat, there is usually a sexual component that he likes to be in control of. And that may not, you may not get to see a side of that, but usually that is a man that is overly concerned with women, and doesn't really like women as much. But is overly concerned, and usually there's a lot of sexual deviance. And I say that as someone who's worked with sexual deviance for a number of years. But they always want to come across controlling even the smallest part of you that they can. But when they're controlled with what you eat and how you look, usually they have poor impulse control as it relates to women, and sort of trying to control women, putting their hands on women, and sex with women. So those things usually closely run parallel. Trigger warning about that. Sorry about that. So I hope that helps. Thanks so much.